listening to The Flip Side with Noah Filipiak, connecting the reality of the gospel to the grit of life. You can support the podcast at patreon.com/Noah Filipiak or at noahfilipiak.com/give.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 12, also known as episode 74 of the Flip Side podcast. First, I was going to start just calling it episode 12, but then I thought in 26 more episodes, it'll be the 100th episode ever. And that's going to be cool, and we'll have a party. We'll have balloons and a cake. Maybe it'll just be like an e-cake or something, because I'm certainly not making a cake. And I have to eat gluten-free, so it's very hard to find just quick, easy cake to eat, right? I'm not going to make the cake, okay? But the e-cake, the 100th episode ever, it's coming. So we're gonna hang on to the dual numbers. Episode 12, also known as episode 74, is today. I apologize for the long delay. I know some of you are like, oh, he's done. 11 episodes in, it's over. It's all over. 11 rounds, knockout. That's about how long my last two podcast efforts lasted until I got bored and busy. No, that's not the only reasons that I changed them. You can go back to those if you want to hear, I guess, why I changed them. But no, we're good. We're good. Everything's good. It's been a little bit. I think it's been 3 weeks. I tried to keep it every other week at least. But it was the 4th of July week this week. Had a lot of other stuff going on. My wife and I have been going back and forth to Grand Rapids from Lansing. It's about an hour and some change to interview. I'm interviewing for a job. She's interviewing for jobs. And so you kind of have to drop everything when that happens. And when you have 3 kids, you can't drop them. So we actually got 2 job offers in the same day this week. And so some of you know this already. I just made this Facebook official this week. But I accepted a job at Ada Bible Church over in Grand Rapids. I'm going to be a pastor within their union ministry, which is to 18 to 30-year-olds. And it's going to be awesome. That's maybe I don't know if you're interested in hearing more about that. I'm not going to tell you all about it now. It is a huge transition for me. I planted a church in the inner city, senior pastor type position for the last 13 years. I've been in an interim position here in Lansing, helping out church here with a sort of stopgap position. But I'm going to be doing a not senior role at a huge church in the suburbs. All 3 things very different than what I'm used to. So we can talk about that. If you want to hear, let me know. There is, by the way, we do have a mailbag. Mailbag's been getting a little crusty, a little dusty. Few moths flutter out of the mailbag when I open it up. Not a lot of action. It's okay. Hey, podcast, the listens are up. So, hey, I mean, if you want to listen and not send in mail, cool. But podcast at beyondthebattle.net. You can email me. It's all good. You can ask questions. I will respond to your questions on the air. They can be stuff you want to hear about. They can be silly or personal. All good. So, yeah. So I got a new job. I'm going to start in mid-August, something like that. And my wife, she's got a new job. She's an elementary music teacher, and she will be working in the Grand Rapids area as well. We will be moving, which is a huge deal for us. My oldest is 7.5. So you can honestly pray for us, pray for her. It's not an easy transition for her. She's going to be going into 2nd grade, and that's a big deal. She's leaving her friends, and that's hard. But my in-laws live over there, and my wife's brother and his family live over there. So in the end, it's going to be good. I am going to be living basically out in the country. We're going to be living where my wife is teaching, and that's going to be super weird for me. And honestly, I did the 2 episodes ago, I think it was, Prosperity Gospel versus Poverty Gospel. Check that out. That's kind of some of the heart of what I wrestle with. I've sort of been indoctrinated into the poverty gospel for a long time, and there's some good scriptural stuff there, and there's some stuff that's legalistic and not good. And I have to wrestle through that, and I am wrestling through that, and I trust God. I mean, I know God has led me in this. It's been very evident, but I'm trusting him that he will use this new experience to help me, I think, be a better teacher and preacher to the church at large about this balance that I talked about in that episode. So, a little shameless plug for 2 episodes ago. Check that one out, about what I'm currently in the midst of working through and struggling through. So, what else happened this week? My wife was driving to her final interview, and it was not her fault, but our minivan got totaled as she was driving. So, she's okay. Yeah, praise God for that. She's okay. The van is not. So, she was slowing down. A police officer had pulled somebody over, and everybody slows down, except the car behind her. Let's clarify that. Large pickup truck towing a large heavy trailer behind her did not slow down, but went full speed and smashed the back of our van. So totaled. So it's been a fun week of shopping for a new van, fun insurance stuff. And today, my wife went and got all the stuff out. When you total your vehicle, you got to get everything out, and then the wrecker comes. Well, we have a 6 disc CD changer in there. I don't know if they probably don't put those in newer cars, but we don't drive new cars. We drive old cars, usually old Toyotas and Hondas, because they drive forever until you total them. And so we have a 6 CD changer in our 2006 Sienna. Moment of silence. And Jen couldn't get the CDs out. It wasn't as weird because it's not like the front of the van got smashed, but something maybe in the wiring got messed up. So I wanted those CDs. Like, they're ours. We still listen to CDs. I know. It's like listening to 8 tracks. So I went there this morning before the wreckers came with crowbar. I did get permission. Crowbar and my drill and big screwdrivers and a hammer, and I took apart, crowbarred out the CD player, and I did get all 6 CDs. And yes, some of you will laugh at this. Some of you will have no idea who this is. Moment of silence for the PFR CD. Great lengths. It did not make it across the rescue. It was lost. It was broken by the crowbarring process. So yeah, my wife and I, we hit this funny season where we rediscovered some of our old CCM CDs, literally that we bought in high school. And a couple of them made it into the 6-disc changer, that being one of them. I think the original Jars of Clay CD, Flood, had a nice long run in the CD changer as well. Because once they make it into the changer, they're in there for a while. Like, it takes a lot to get unseated from the changer because we're pretty lazy and not going to mess with that kind of stuff. So PFR had a long run, and it got shattered. It got smashed. So there's one less PFR Great Length CD in the world. Probably weren't many left. I mean, it's like an endangered species, like a black rhino just died. So that's what happened this morning. What else is going on this week in the last few weeks? All this is why I haven't had an episode out. So renovating a rental house that I own that got trashed by my last tenants. So that's awesome. Don't ever own rental property, ever. You heard it here first. Now, this was like a ministry house that we bought, and it was helpful for one family and not for the next. It's a long story, but they trashed the house. It's a tough situation. Pretty, I don't want to talk about it. Not good. Talk about on the podcast. Talk about something else. But we have to renovate the whole thing to make it livable again and to be able to sell it. And I am terrible at renovating things. So it's been an awfully long and awful, long, awful process and long process. So shout out, thank you to my parents who have come up from Ohio twice to help renovate things. They are better at it than me. And I've had a group of friends helping me as well. And so thank you. And that's still going on. Oh, last couple things. Hopefully, man, this is the point where it's getting boring. Yeah, I feel it. So I'm taking a class at Calvin Seminary, Creeds and Confessions of the Reformed Church. Bam! How about that? In a few years, I'm going to be doing a PhD, hopefully at Trinity Evangelical Divinity School. I have 24 credits. Taken 3 of them this summer. 24 credits I have to take between my master's and that PhD. So this is 3 of them. Bad timing to take a class. My wife was like, don't take the class. I'm like, I got to take the class. I got to get this started. I got to get this going. Yeah, she was right. Yeah, that's right. She was right. I got no shame in admitting that. She was right. Yeah, I'm not taking any classes in the fall or spring because I'm starting a new job, and that's going to be hard. So we'll start back up again after the spring. All right. Last but not least, BeyondTheBattle.net groups that I promote all the time on here. Well, my last 4 or 5 groups have all sold out. One of them almost sold out, which is awesome, except it's way more work, like good work, but emails, lots of them, lots of counseling via email. So, yeah, great timing to have a podcast and take a class. And I have 3 kids. So, that's my life. Can you tell I have a problem with limits? So pray for me with that. I'm actually literally working on that right now. So hopefully the podcast will survive the prayerful discernment through limits. But a big thank you to my now 8 patrons. So you always hear in the intro something like give on patreon.com/Noah Filipiak. I invite you to do that. It does help. It really does. Helps. I'm thankful for those 8 people. 7 are on there. 1 is via PayPal. They didn't like Patreon. So, hey, we worked that out. Who knew people didn't like Patreon? But that does help. Thank you to you 8. And if you want to join that group, when I get to 10 patrons, there will be some things going on. You can read about that at patreon.com, and you can get freebies. Also, I won't explain it again, but check it out on the Patreon page. So thank you to those 8. It does kick me in the butt a bit to say, get another episode out there. I do love doing it, but it's like anything else you love doing. You do it a lot, and you need a coach. You need some accountability, You need a community. That's what we are, baby. So here we go. We're on episode 12. If you missed episode 11, I did a guest interview with Kevin Butcher. He is an author. I call him a mentor of mine. We've kind of just met, but he does mentoring of pastors, and man, he's just the ideal type of heart for a mentor. And going forward, he is legitimately a mentor of mine. So thanks, Kevin, and great stuff. And in fact, that episode is rivaling the Game of Thrones episode for most listens. So how about that? I would suspect it would take the lead here in the next couple of weeks since Game of Thrones is over. Did you notice? No coincidence. I did my episode on how Game of Thrones is porn, and all of a sudden, series premiere episode. The whole thing's over. They must have gotten convicted about their sin and stopped. Is all me. I take credit for that. So you're welcome. Yeah. So you know, just like Noah's rant, the flip side has a huge impact on the world. Of course it does. Speaking of the flip side, this episode is brought to you by our sponsor. You're like, he got a sponsor? No, not really. But I am drinking traditional medicinals, organic throat coat tea. The reason that I am drinking this is because on Facebook, I asked my friends, I can't get through a podcast episode without hacking up a lung because I think I damaged my throat or something, preaching or being loud or doing podcasts. And this was one of the many remedies suggested. It tastes good. Tastes like black licorice. I like it. So we'll see if it helps me get through the episode. I'm going to take a big drink of it right now. Oh, yeah. Also just took down a Thayer's Slippery Elm Lozenge, Nature's Gentle Demulcent, maybe is how you say that. So, we'll see if those help. Oh, so yeah, before I jump into the topic of the day, we do have one. Nothing like a 15-minute intro. That's right, baby. You know it's a good episode when the intro is 15 minutes. So here's how I structure this. The meat of the flip side. It's serious stuff, right? This is actually one of the reasons I switched to this format. I can't be serious all the time. I mean, I am. I mean, when you're a pastor, like, it's pretty serious stuff. But I like to be funny. I like to have fun. Maybe you don't think it's funny. That's fine. I think it. I just like to have fun. I like to goof around. I don't want to be serious all the time. That's why we have Noah's Rant. And sometimes that's what I do with the intro. It's like, hey, here's an intro. Here's talk. Here's funny stuff. Here's normal stuff before we get into the really serious stuff. So that's what the intro is. So if you don't like the intro, just fast forward 15 minutes. If you don't like Noah's Rant, well, then just stop listening after once it gets to Noah's Rant. I wouldn't blame you. But today for Noah's Rant, I'm not doing Noah's Rant right now, but this is so you continue listening to the very end. This is what they call in the business a tease. Keep you on the edge of your seat. Noah's Rant today will be pushing for the extinction of robins. That's right, the bird, the robins. Yes, also called what I'm calling the urban rooster. Yeah, I hate those birds, and I hope they all die. So we'll talk about that in Noah's Rant. Just just hang on. Today for the flip side. Now, to the moment you've been waiting for. A lot of times, well, in Beyond the Battle, I talk about this a lot, but this applies whether sexual sin is like your temptation or not. This applies to everybody. And it's that we have to find our wholeness in Jesus instead of elsewhere. And obviously it applies to sexual sin pretty directly. And I make the claim that what we are really looking for from sexual sin, from lust, pornography, men, women, what we're really looking for is to be made whole. We're looking to be told that we are valuable, but I can really only find that value in Jesus, or as Kevin Butcher and I talked about last episode, in the Father's love, which is bestowed upon me because of Jesus. So we're going to talk about that today, but I'm going to kind of flesh it out in a different way, so it won't just be repetitive of stuff that we've already talked about. But there is an analogy. You may have heard me use it before. I use it in the book. And it's about being hungry. And think about what happens when you're hungry and you go to the grocery store. What happens? Well, what happens is everything looks good. You start throwing, you might have shown up at the grocery store to buy bread, milk, and eggs, and you end up grabbing 6 boxes of donuts, Oreo cookies, bags of Doritos. Oh, Doritos, I'm telling you, they're seriously my favorite food. Like, if you ask me what my favorite food is, I'd be like, Doritos. If you're like, what kind? I'd be like, the blue and the red. I don't know, because I'll eat like the whole bag, and then it's probably like I need a change up. So if I just ate like a whole bag of red, I'd be like blue. If I just ate a whole bag of blue, I'd be like red. So you have a cart full of this stuff. It's because you're hungry, and when you're hungry, everything looks good. And not only did you buy a bunch of junk food, you may or may not have even bought the stuff you came there for, and you spent way more money than you planned or should have spent. Well, literally, you could read like diet websites or budget websites. Both will tell you, don't go to the grocery store hungry, because that's what will happen. Everything looks good, so you buy it. Now, compare that feeling. Not only do you buy it, literally, when I usually will wait until I pay for the food. Now, if I have my 2-year-old with me, or we don't mess around, we just open that stuff up while we're shopping to keep her quiet. But if it's just me, I will certainly open up something between checking out and the car, and I'll eat that on the way home, right? No doubt. You do that. Of course you do. So compare that to Thanksgiving, and you just finished your 5th helping of turkey and gravy. You've eaten mashed potatoes. You've eaten stuffing. At my house, we've eaten pierogies. Thank you, Mom, for those delicious sauerkraut pierogies. The best food on the earth. Yes, I'm gluten-free. She did make gluten-free pierogies once. They actually were delicious. Yeah, so you're full. You're stuffed. You have pecan pie. You have apple cider. You have all these things that you've eaten. You can't eat anymore. It's Thanksgiving Day. You roll onto the couch. You turn on the TV. You watch the Detroit Lions lose another game. And while you're watching, a commercial shows up for Burger King. Now, being full of Thanksgiving food, as you are, what is your reaction to the Burger King commercial? My guess is you are not getting in your car and sprinting over to Burger King to get a double Whopper with fries and a Coke. It's more likely your response would be to throw up, to change the channel. That probably looks like some of the most disgusting food you've ever seen because you are so full already on the good stuff. So hopefully you can see where this analogy goes. One thing I emphasize a whole bunch in Beyond the Battle and in my online small groups is the need to spend daily, call it daily rhythm time, getting the daily rhythm to really out of desperation to spend time with the Lord, not just plowing through the Bible in a cognitive way, but meditating on the truths of Scripture, meditating on the truths of the Father's love for you. We'll talk about some of that in today's episode, but letting those truths wash over you, letting them nourish you, listening to God's voice about who you are and being reminded of truth after truth after truth. This is the spiritual process of eating. This is the spiritual thanksgiving. It's the spiritual being full on the love and the value and the approval that I have in the Father because of Jesus. It's the gratitude that comes from what I've been given by Jesus. I've been given mercy where I deserve judgment, but he gave me mercy instead. And from that flows this gratitude. I have to feed on that every day. And if I do that, I'm full. And then when the junk comes my way, the junk that I refer to in the book is sexual temptation, this idea that this man or this woman, whether in real life and pornography and mental fantasy, is saying, hey, I can give you value. It's just like Satan in Matthew 4 to Jesus. He says, if you are the Son of God, then do this trick. And Jesus is like, if I'm the Son of God. Like, I don't have to prove that I'm the Son of God. I know I'm the Son of God. Because if you read the end of Matthew 3, the Father had just told Jesus he is the Son of God, whom the Father loves and whom the Father is well pleased with. Jesus is like, I don't care what label Satan gives me. It means nothing. Like, I know who I really am. And so he's able to deflect with truth. He's able to deflect these temptations and not fall to it. So then how does this what does this look like in real time? And here's the thing. We are all seeking value. I believe that. I believe we all have a hole inside of us, Christians and non-Christians. You can put your faith in Jesus to save you from your sins and still have this hole inside of you, this hole that wants to be told I am valuable, wants to be told I am worth something, wants to be told I am accepted, I am approved. And you may be looking to a man or a woman for that. You may be looking to your spouse to give you that. You may be looking to a relationship to give you that. You don't have that relationship, or your spouse isn't giving it to you, so you fantasize about that. It gives you a little bit of a hit to just fantasize about it, or you go into pornography or whatever it might be. But we also look for this sense of value from, and it's different for different cultures and contexts, but the amount of money you have, the certain status that money gives you, the reputation you have, the job you have, the popularity that you have, the amount of Facebook followers you have or Twitter followers you have. It could be all these things. In fact, you even use social media, like the things you post about on Facebook often are things saying, I want other people to tell me that I'm valuable. So I'm going to post this thing that I did or the experience I had or this funny thing I made up. And I want people to see it and be like, man, yeah, they're good. Like they're cool. They're good. You may not use those words to it, but there's a sense of affirmation and approval you're looking for when you post this publicly for other people to see and say, look at me, and they look at you and they applaud. And we want that. We want that sense of affirmation because there's a hole inside of us. And you know what the hole says? The hole says you're a failure. The hole says you're worthless. The hole says you're a disgrace. The hole says when God looks at you, he's disappointed in you. Or when God looks at you, he's disgusted with you. Or you haven't done enough. Or you're not good enough. You're not cool enough. You're not spiritual enough. All these sorts of messages. That hole was put there possibly by your parents, one or the other or both, possibly by an abuser, possibly by all the guys that rejected you growing up, possibly by all the girls that rejected you growing up, and I should say on into adulthood, and this message that you've patterned into your mind about that. And I would say that this whole is that you could have had the ideal upbringing, the ideal parents, the ideal, boyfriends, girlfriends, on into spouse, that you've always gotten the person you desired and you've always been loved and all these things. You still have this hole inside of you. It is a automatic, natural byproduct of living in this culture. So we live in a culture where we're bombarded with advertisements, movies, TV shows, you name it, and they take the top 0.01% of quote-unquote beautiful people, the quote-unquote perfect body, face, etc., and they put them in front of you over and over and over and over and over, and then they tell you, if you don't look like this, you're a failure. If you don't look like this, you're worthless. If you don't have this product in your life, you're worthless. And so, of course, we go out to buy that product because we want to have worth. We don't want to be worthless. So I must have the latest, greatest this or the latest, greatest that in order to try to fill that hole that's inside of me. Or if I buy that product, then I will look like the top 0.01% beautiful people in the world that I'm bombarded with over and 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 over again. And when I look like that, then I will get the acceptance and approval of all of my peers and of the world, and my life will be complete, so to speak. So we chase that, we chase that, we chase that. So hopefully you can relate. You're tracking with me, whether sexual sin is an issue for you or it's any one of those other number of things that I mentioned. So let me give you a very real life situation. And this is a friend of mine, struggles with same-sex attraction, and he is a believer. He's a Christian, and he is a Christian who wants to live according to the Bible. He knows what the Bible says. He knows that the sexual act of living this out, the Bible says is a sin. And so, but I would say he's on the front end of struggling through this. There's others who have written books, Wesley Hill, Nate Collins, Christopher Yuan, that's Yuan, and Rosaria Butterfield. And these are believers who have struggled through this same-sex attraction, and now they're helping others. They're leading others. I'm not putting words in their mouths, but more or less affirming what I'm saying, and I'm affirming what they're saying, is that, these relationships aren't going to make you whole. Only Jesus can make you whole. And when you experience that wholeness in Jesus, it's not like all your problems go away, but that hole is filled. And for some, they're living single, celibate lives. For others, they've married someone of the opposite sex and who's obviously aware of their struggle. And that's their story and their testimony, and you can read those books, and I would encourage you to do that. So my friend is more on the front end, where he's in a regular struggle, and as I'm counseling him through some of these beyond the battle principles, he asks a very, practical question. Basically, how? Like, what you're saying, sure, I mean, Noah, that sounds good in a podcast or even in a book, but how is that possible when I want to look at this pornography because I know it's going to make me feel better for a moment, right? It's going to make me feel better. There's a physical release. Obviously, there's a lot of stress and anxiety in life, and this becomes for many a coping mechanism to go to pornography, to go to sexual release, these sorts of things. So how is my wholeness in Jesus going to make me kind of feel better? How's it going to give me what this gives me? I don't really see how that's possible. And so I've been thinking about that. So how about an awkward, break, very roughly edited in, right? Here's let me give you a halftime report of the sponsors, the things are supposed to help my throat, and then we'll get back to talking about my friend's question and finishing up the rest of the meat part of the episode. So the Slippery Elm lozenges, I'm sorry, like they don't do anything. They really don't. They taste kind of good. They taste kind of weird, really. The tea, the throat coat, I need like a gallon of it. That's the problem. Like while I have this little cup, it's not very big. And while I was drinking it, it helped. And then it was gone. And the coat didn't stick around. You know what I'm saying? Like it wasn't like it didn't like zip up and stay. The coat kind of left. And I've been having to stop a lot so I could hack and cough. So I actually just went and got some more, which I'm now going to partake of. And so, yeah, good learning experience, not giving up on the throat coat. I think next time I'll just make a gallon of it so I can just chug it while I'm talking to you. So, yeah. So there you go. Like you cared, but now you know. So let's get back to this idea of value in my friend's question. And so first, we need to set the table with Scripture. I just think that's really, really important. And some of that is because some of this talk about shame and value that's out there, some of it's Christian, some of it's not. Some of it's really popular. And I don't want to name names because I'm not trying to rip on people, but if you hear someone talking just about shame, or the opposite of shame being like, your worthiness and such, and it's especially in a secular context, we'll get into some of that. Like, I think it's a helpful message. There's helpful psychology behind that. But it's just a lot better and a lot different when you have the foundation of Scripture under you. Like, I don't want you to think, oh, this is true because Noah said it, or because this sounds good. Like, this makes me feel good about myself. I'm not really interested in that. I'm saying this is what the Bible says. Like, this is what you get from the gospel. Like, the gospel really is this Thanksgiving meal. And what I observe is we don't even like get to the turkey. We're just like, we're at the table and we love the gospel, and that's awesome. But we might eat like some of the salad at the beginning and think that that's it. Like, we're going to heaven. That's fantastic. We sing some songs about Jesus. And meanwhile, there's this banquet in front of you to fill up on, to have this wholeness on every day, this love on you every day. And it's in Scripture. I'm telling you, Scripture is the check that cashes out. It's like the mint. It's got the gold behind it. This is where you should be whenever you're talking about these issues of shame versus being loved and being beloved and having value and these sorts of things. So I want to set the table for you with a line of Scripture you may have heard me talk about on the podcast before, but I'm going to do it again kind of quickly. I've already mentioned Jesus in Matthew 3:16-17. He gets baptized. The Father says, "This is my Son, whom I love and whom I'm well pleased." If you want the abbreviated version of this, what I'm saying is that statement from the Father to Jesus is 100% true about you, and I have Scripture to prove it. Okay? If I didn't, then you should just throw all this out and be like, yeah, whatever. No, it's not. I have Scripture to prove it. So when you close your eyes and I ask you, what does the Father say about you? Try that. And that whole inside of you is saying the Father's disappointed in you, or the Father's disgusted in you, or you haven't done enough. And Scripture is going to show us that because of Jesus, because of the gospel, when the Father looks at you, he says, this is my son, this is my daughter, my beloved son, my beloved daughter. That means this is my son or daughter whom I love so much, and in whom I am well pleased. When the Father looks at you, he says, I'm so pleased with you. I am so pleased with you. Again, we'll get to the Scripture that backs this up, but outside of a biblical framework of this, we need to be reminded that in our sin, the Father is not pleased with us. The Father is not pleased with sin. Romans 5:10, for if while we were God's enemies, we were reconciled to him through the death of his son. We were God's enemies. Before Jesus came into the picture to reconcile us, we were his enemies. If you know the Romans road, Romans 3:23, Romans 6:23, for the wages of sin is death. That's Romans 6:23. For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. Romans 3:23. Read the beginning of Romans 3. I think it's verses 10 through 12. There's no one righteous. No, not one. Romans 1 talks about the wrath of God is on all of mankind. Now, in our sinful state, and we shouldn't throw out everything that a secular person says about our value. We still are created in God's image. There's still a sacredness to us as image bearers, and in the sense Jesus deemed us, he loved us enough to come and die for us. But let's not forget that apart from Jesus, apart from his reconciling work, we don't have this fullness and wholeness that we have in the Father's love when we're in Jesus. So to me, all that is an invitation to get in Jesus, right? Get to the table. It's free. Jesus died for you. He welcomes you into his family, but you can't have the benefits of sonship, of adoption. You can't have the benefit of being a son, a daughter, unless you've been adopted into the family. And you're not adopted into the family unless you've received the gift Jesus offers of himself, which is what you need in order to be adopted into the family. So you accept that gift, you're in the family. Now, Romans 8:15-17 tells us that we are children of God, we are heirs of God, and we are co-heirs with Christ. What co-heirs with Christ, verse 17, a co-heir, you know what that means. It means you get what the heir gets. You're an heir now to the throne, the inheritance. You get what the king gives you. You get the kingdom. And co-heirs mean we all get the same thing. It doesn't only mean you and I get the same thing. We're co-heirs with Jesus. You and I and Jesus get the same thing from the Father. So because of that, we get the Father's pleasure and love towards us as his kids, Matthew 3:16 and 17, that Jesus got. You are my beloved son, daughter, whom I love and whom I'm well pleased, because you're a co-heir with Christ. And Romans 8:15-17 is saying that anyway. You can cry out to God, Abba, Father. You are his son, you are his daughter. You are adopted into this family. This is your new status. This is your new position. But Scripture goes on. It'd be if you still can't believe this, if this seems not real or unbelievable to you, Colossians 1:22 tells us that when the Father looks at us, because of Jesus, it's very clear it's because of Jesus' death, because of his physical body dying in our place, we've been reconciled. And that reconciliation, it clearly lays it out. 3 things that it lists. He presents us as holy. That means perfect. Presents us without blemish and free from accusation. So go back to originally when I said, close your eyes, what's the Father say when he looks at you? And if you had thoughts of, well, he's disgusted with me, or he disapproves, he's displeased with me. there's no way, or disappointed with me. There's no way he could be disappointed with you because he sees perfection. He sees perfection. There's no way he could be disgusted with you because there's no blemish that he sees. There's no accusation left. Colossians 1:22 lays that out. Romans 8:4, same chapter talking about Romans 8:1, there's no condemnation for those that are in Christ. 15-17 just said we've been adopted. We're sons, daughters, children. We cry out, Abba, Father. Verse 4 says that the righteous requirement of the law, so what is that for a second? Perfection. Every law in the Old Testament, you could never match up to that. All that has been fully met, it says, in us because of Jesus. So when the Father sees you, he sees the full perfection of the law having been fulfilled in you. When the Father sees you, he sees perfection. He is not disappointed in you. He sees a co-heir with his Son. It's because of what Jesus did for you. This is your value. And so the voice from heaven saying, this is my Son whom I love, whom I'm well pleased, to Jesus, that's what the Father says about you when he looks at you. This is my son, this is my daughter, whom I love and whom I'm well pleased. I legitimately could talk about this every podcast episode and it would never get old because we legitimately need it. I think every day, this is what we need to do in our daily rhythm time with Jesus. It's not that you can't read other scripture, but to come back to this foundational point, to be nourished on this truth, to eat from this Thanksgiving table so that when we go into the grocery store, which is real life, which is all the temptations around us, be they sexual or otherwise, saying, prove yourself to be valuable, grab this thing, do this, so that you have a feeling or a sense of value to tell you who you really are as acceptable. We can say, like Jesus did to Satan in Matthew 4, I'm already valuable. Like I don't have to prove that I'm a son. I don't have to prove that I'm a daughter. I know who I am. The Father just told me who I am. And I reminded myself of it this morning. Like Jesus did it for me on the cross this morning. I spent time with the Lord, and I was reminded of it, and I'm good. I'm whole. I am full. And this is truth. And we let this truth speak to us. We let this truth speak to us. I just listened to a podcast interviewing a guy named Jamie Winship, and I mentioned that just to cite this quote, reference, whatever the word is. What you don't really cite things when you're doing a podcast like you would in a book, but give him credit. I thought this was a really helpful analogy. Someone emailed after listening to, so kind of like mailbag, right? I'm pretty desperate for mailbag, so I could technically count this because it was an email reply to one of my website subscribers who get these. So anyway, thank you for that referral of this episode. But Jamie was talking about, and it's episode 59 of a podcast called Win Today with Christopher Cook, if you want to find it. I'll put it in the show notes as well. But Jamie talked about, and I have kids that are 7, 5, and 2, and they're in the thick of this fear of the dark. And I'm not going to, I heard the podcast once. I'm going to be roughly paraphrasing. It will not be as eloquent as he said it. But essentially, he's talking about when you talk to a kid who's afraid of the dark, and he's talking about how we believe lies. And the solution when we believe a lie is what? It's to believe the truth instead, right? And so this child thinks that when there's darkness in the room, like what does the child think is true at that point? They legitimately think like evil is going to happen to them, that there's like a boogeyman or monsters or whatever, like that legitimately live under the bed. Or if it's not that, it's just a general sense of uneasiness. Like my kids come into my wife and I's room, they sleep on the floor because they don't want to sleep in their bedroom, even though they share a room together because they're scared. And it's like, what are you scared of? There's legitimately nothing to be scared of. Like it'd be one thing if we lived in the woods and there were wild animals and wolves around, like that would be a legitimate fear. But they are literally believing a lie that when the lights are off, and we even have a night light in their room, and that helps some, but we crack the door so that the light from the hallway can come in, and some of you parents know exactly what I'm talking about. And at the end of the day, they're believing a lie. And what they have to be able to do is believe the truth. And once they start to understand the truth that for those of us as adults, we fully understand. Like, when you turn the lights off, it's not a green light for evil and demons and whatever else to like enter into your room and attack you. We just are like, nah, it's time for sleep, man. Shut those lights off. Like, it's about time I can rest. In fact, we like the dark because we can rest. It like blocks out all the other, distractions. And we just live in that truth, and it's the real truth. It's the truth of what's actually happening. And so Jamie Winship is using this analogy about when it comes to our identity, and it just really hit home with some of the stuff in Beyond the Battle, where in this idea that of the grocery store, where if I'm at the Thanksgiving table and I'm being reminded of truth, I am God's son or daughter. He really loves me. Like, I can close my eyes and say, Father, what do you think about me? And listen to his voice. And if he says anything like, oh, I'm disappointed in you, I'm disgusted in you, that's not the Father. Like, you just know that's not true. Like, I live my kids sleep, I should say, on the second floor of a house in the middle of Lansing, Michigan. I promise you there's no wolves in their room. I know that 100%. Like, I can promise you that is not the Father's voice, because we have the Father's voice in Matthew 3:16-17. We have Romans 8:17 saying that gets attributed to you. We have Colossians 1:22. We have Romans 8:4 saying this is actually what the Father really thinks of you. And so then I can be reminded truth. I mean, I think Jesus knew this about us. He says with communion, the Lord's Supper, the Eucharist, do this. And you like how I mentioned all that to cover just, all the denominations that might be listening. He says, do this in remembrance of me. Well, why do you tell your kids, remember to buckle up, remember to get your lunch before you go off to school? It's because they're forgetful. So Jesus tells his kids, technically siblings, but you know what I mean, within the Trinity, his kids, he tells us, his sheep, remember me, remember Christ. Remember, this is my body broken for you. This is my blood shed for you. Remember me. And I think what my point there is, he knows we're forgetful, so he tells us to remember these things. Remember these truths about who you are. And so, back to I've just been thinking about my friend, and look, I think our brothers and sisters who struggle with same-sex attraction, I think of the verse, and we're gonna talk about here in a minute, where Jesus says, "Pick up your cross daily and follow me." And he says, "Whoever does not take up their cross and follow me is not worthy of me." Like, what it means to be a Christian is pick up your cross. And there's different theories and commentators, I guess. It's funny, commentator. If you just were like abbreviated that to tater, that's just really funny. Tater would be the name of a slang for home run in baseball. Tater also definitely reminds me of Tater Tots, which I just watched Napoleon Dynamite with my kids. That was a fantastic experience. My oldest is 7, almost 8, and then my middle is almost 6. So I'm getting to watch, like, I'm indoctrinating them with movies, like Napoleon Dynamite being one of them, Star Wars, the original 3. And you're in full control as a parent, because I still haven't yet decided if I will put my children through the trauma of watching episode 1 of Star Wars to kind of give them the full arc of the story. Because honestly, they'll probably like it because they're 5 and 7. They'll probably like Jar Jar Binks, and I think that would be child abuse. And so right now we've just stuck with 4, 5, and 6, which is like the Bible pretty much. Like, it's good to just stick with that. So I'll take your advice on that too if you want to email me. podcast@beyondthebattle.net. Let me know any more seasoned, experienced parents out there on how to tackle that one. But back to whatever I was talking about. Like, for real, I need some help. I'm gonna have to take a break to get my train back. Where's my train? Oh, I love it. Oh, this is a first on the flip side in all of podcasting history. Of the 74 episodes, I literally had to just stop everything, open up the recording, because you can't just like go back and listen to the last 30 seconds. I had to open up the recording like in iTunes to try to remember what on earth I was talking about, how I got on to talking about episode 1 and Jar Jar Binks. It was from the commentators. I said commentators, and then I started talking about Napoleon Dynamite. So what I was trying to say in my serious side of me, what I was trying to talk about is all the biblical, what would they be called if not commentators? I think that's what people literally call them. I will never, ever be able to have a straight face when I hear that again. So biblical commentators, they say there's lots of stuff about, when Jesus said, pick up your cross. What was he talking about? But so this, what I'm about to say, is a contribution to that conversation, we'll say. But certainly, I think we have different crosses that we bear, and you've heard that phrase. It's a figure of speech, not necessarily directly biblical, but it would come from these verses. This is my cross to bear. This is your cross to bear. It would come from this what Jesus says. You have to take up your cross to follow me. My point I was making is our brothers and sisters who struggle with same-sex attraction, I think, have one of the most difficult crosses to bear. Now, in other places, I will make the argument, and I think it is an effective argument, that we really are all in the same boat, and if a person who's married and their spouse refuses to have sex with them and rejects them on a daily basis, I think that's a pretty tough cross to bear too, where I think you could make an argument, well, it'd probably be easier to be single and celibate than to be in a marriage and have a spouse that treats you like that. But the point is not to compare the crosses, right? Which is what we often do. But I just want to acknowledge the challenge and difficulty of this cross, and also acknowledge, before I even get into, the various texts I'm going to read about picking up your cross, all of this points back, this whole concept of this episode points back to 2 Corinthians 12, 7 through 10. Paul says, I was given a thorn in my flesh, a messenger of Satan to torment me. 3 times I pleaded with the Lord to take it away from me, but he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore I will boast all the more gladly about my weakness, so that Christ's power may rest on me. That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weakness and insults and hardship and persecutions and difficulties, for when I am weak, then I am strong. I'm just fleshing that out. That's the Thanksgiving table, that the grace of Jesus, when we bask in it, and I hope that Beyond the Battle does give a path for how to do this, to bask in that sort of grace will get you through anything. It does not a guarantee that it will change your circumstances, and some people think that if I have enough faith, my same-sex attraction will go away. It might. Fantastic. It doesn't mean it's going to go away for everybody. If it went away for the person's book you're reading about, it doesn't mean it's going to go away for you. If I have enough faith, my spouse will change and be better and more loving, and they will, not reject me all the time. It doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that that's going to ever change. It can change. I'm not saying it won't change, but you can't have that be, God, you promised me that this would change. It's not promised. And that posture of prayer is a posture of entitlement, and that only leads to more and more discontent. And let's be honest, that's a miserable place to be. So I'm getting on a little bit of a tangent there, but I want to go back. I want to bring up 2 Corinthians 12, 7 through 10, because it really is the backbone to all this, that his grace is sufficient, and we are learning how to tap into that grace. So I was thinking about my friend, and it is a cross to bear, this same-sex attraction, and he's like, look, how do I get this from Jesus instead of from this pornography or this fantasy or whatever? Because he is single and celibate, and so he's really wrestling with this how to live this sort of life. And so God just brought up to me these verses of picking up your cross, and they don't necessarily directly apply. It was like something deeper that God revealed to me that I'm going to reveal to you, or not reveal to you, I'm sorry. I'm going to kind of walk through with you in more of a devotional sort of way. So if you look at these texts, you find them in Matthew, in Mark, and in Luke. In Matthew 10, these are all the places where Jesus says, pick up your cross and follow me. It's twice in Matthew, once in Mark, and twice in Luke. So obviously, if you're familiar with the Synoptic Gospels, there's some repetition here. But the context of the first one in Matthew 10:34-35, he's talking about, I didn't come to bring peace on the earth, but the sword. And it's a text about how families are going to be disowning each other if you become a Christian. So if you were in a Jewish family in the first century and you became a Christian, they would disown you. If you were in a pagan family, you'd probably be a little better off, but they're likely to disown you as well, and they might kill you, right? The Romans were killing Christians, and so he's saying, you got to decide, like, you follow me as a Christian, whoever does not take up his cross and follow me is not worthy of me. But like, yeah, but I don't want my parents to disown me, so I'm not going to become a Christian. He's like, yeah, that's a decision you got to make. Or I don't want to get fed to the lions, not the Detroit Lions, the lions in the Coliseum. Like, I don't want that to happen to me by the Romans. So I'm good. I'm not going to profess Jesus. That's what Jesus is talking about. Whoever does not take up his cross and follow me is not worthy of me. Later in Matthew, he's talking to his disciples about how he's going to die on the cross. And this is where Peter's like, no way, dude. Never, Lord. This shall never happen to you. I think that's how Peter talked, because it's really a ridiculous thing to say. Like, you don't say to Jesus, like, you aren't going to die. No, I won't let this happen to you, Jesus. So that's where Jesus calls Peter Satan, which is pretty incredible. And he very next line after calling Jesus Satan is, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny himself and take up their cross and follow me. He goes on, whoever wants to save their life will lose it. Whoever loses their life for me will find it. What good is it to gain the whole world, yet forfeit their soul? What can anyone give in exchange for his soul? This is Matthew 16:21-26. He's trying to get his disciples to realize, look, I'm going to die a brutal death on a cross. This walk is not about empire. It's not about, hey, we're going to take out Caesar and I'm going to be the new Caesar and you guys are going to be my royal court and it's going to be all comfort all the time and you're going to get everything you want. That's what it means to be a Christian. He's like, no, this is a path of, it's not just my cross. I'm going to die on a cross, yeah, and you're going to get your own cross too. And a lot of these guys, as you know, died martyrs' death. Some died on crosses, but metaphorically speaking, for all of us, he's saying, no, that's not the path of following Jesus. You have to pick up your cross and follow me. If you go to Mark, basically you find a repetition of those. On Mark 8, you find a repetition of that teaching, and then in Luke, you find a repetition. The first one is of Peter. Peter saying, you are Messiah, which was in the same context of being called Satan earlier in Matthew. And then he goes through in Luke, kind of repeats the same, but we find it 5 times. And then you see in Luke again about the father, mother, wife, children, brothers, etc. The same idea. And so the idea here usually, and I'm certainly not throwing it out, is the primary way of understanding this text is it's not going to be easy, and understand that. And even in Luke 14, it goes out much more in detail, verse 31 and following, saying you got to count the cost. There's going to be a cost. You're not earning your salvation, but understand that when you profess Jesus, you're going to be persecuted. You'll be, in our culture, you'll be made fun of. You'll be ripped on Twitter. Maybe it is getting a bit worse in our culture today. You'll easily be called a bigot or whatever if you hold any exclusive claims about Jesus. But back then, you would legitimately have a good chance of getting killed. And throughout the world today, not any different than in the Middle East, some communist countries as well, where you can be killed and or arrested for being a follower of Jesus. So it's done in hiding and these sorts of things. And so I'm just meditating on my friend and his situation, and even how to help answer him, and meditating on pick up your cross and follow me. Because as I was praying, a friend of mine was praying for me, and God was just really reminding me of the sufficiency of the cross. The cross was enough. This is what I tell the guys in my online Beyond the Battle groups, is when the Father looks at you, he doesn't say, I'm disappointed in you or I'm disgusted with you, because the cross was enough to make you a co-heir. The cross was enough to make you an heir. It was enough to make you a son. It was enough to make you a daughter. So it was enough to make you holy. It was enough to have the righteous requirement of the law fully met in you. And so if we say, yeah, but, like, I get it, but no, I think the Father's still disappointed in me, then what you're really saying is the cross wasn't enough. The cross wasn't sufficient. Like, Jesus didn't do an A+ job on the cross. He did maybe like a B- C+ job on the cross, like enough to get me in heaven, but not enough for Colossians 1:22 to be true about me. And so that's the lie you're believing, the lie that there's a wolf that lives in your upstairs bedroom where you're sleeping when you turn the lights off. So the truth is, like, no, there's no wolf. Like, the truth is the cross is sufficient. The cross is enough. So I'm thinking, and my friend is praying for me, and God is just bringing me back to the cross, the cross, the cross, the cross. And then God brought me back to this verse that whoever does not carry their cross and follow me cannot be my disciple. So if you are a disciple of Jesus, you are carrying a cross. And then what hit me was, wow, we get so much more with that cross than we realize. I'm carrying that cross, and typically I just think of it like, yeah, this is like a burden, kind of. Like, I could get persecuted for this. I could get thrown to the lions for this. But that cross is the sufficiency. It's like the reminder to me. What I'm saying is, whenever you see a cross, be reminded that it was sufficient to make you fully a son, fully a daughter. The cross is sufficient to make you fully loved by the Father, fully holy, fully without blemish, full of value, fully affirmed by God, that he fully loves you and is fully well pleased with you because of the cross that you get to carry with you everywhere you go. Because you got to carry that cross to be a disciple. I thought, wow, the cross isn't just somewhere that I access every once in a while. I'm always carrying this sonship around with me, this adoption around with me. The belovedness of the Father onto me, I am always carrying that with me. That's beautiful. I want you to take that to your time with the Lord. It is beautiful, and I love hearing it. Like, I love hearing that reminder. I'll listen to this episode because I just need to be reminded of it. It's not my words. It's from Scripture. It's from the Father, purchased by Jesus, and now communicated to me through the Holy Spirit. It's amazing. So back to my friend, my advice is you have to be able to step back when that lust is just overtaking you and say, what is it that I'm really trying to get out of this? Because I'm going to this to have my anxiety, my stress relieved, to have some comfort. But what's underneath that comfort? There's a feeling, all lust is powered by seduction. It's powered by this suggestion that this person wants me, that I can fantasize about being with this person, and being with them will fill that hole inside of me. It's human embrace. It's better than a drug. A drug, I feel high, but there's no human embrace. And sex and lust and fantasy, it's better than a drug because I get the high and I get human embrace. I get those arms around me, whether it's in my imagination or in real life, and those arms are telling me, I want you, I desire you, I love you, you are okay. And we believe the lie that those arms can actually communicate that to us. And you get married to someone thinking that they will communicate that to you. And then you wake up and say, why is that hole still there? Because no spouse can communicate that to you. No man or woman in any heterosexual or same-sexual relationship can give you that. Nobody can give you that. That's why you can have this wholeness in Jesus, whether you are single or married. And if you're married, you'd better have it, because chances are your spouse is the first thing you're going to look to give it to you, and they will never be able to give it to you. The best spouse on the planet won't be able to. So advice to my friend is to take a step back from the lust and say, can I point to the places in this lust where what I'm looking for is, in this comfort, I'm looking for this person, this man in this case, to tell me that I'm okay, to tell me that the family member growing up who told me I was worthless, that this man will tell me, you're not worthless, and let me show that to you. I accept you. I approve of you. If we can pinpoint that, then we can say, okay, that's the lie. That's the false source of where to find this. The true source I already have in the cross, the sufficiency of the cross. So let me go now and remember that and take myself through, take yourself through the discipline of this exercise of being reminded of it and meditating on the love of the Father. Can you picture the Father holding you right now, loving you? You're my son whom I love and whom I'm well pleased. You're my daughter whom I love and whom I'm well pleased. You are already made whole. It doesn't mean that you are going to even have the same euphoric rush that you'd get from the porn or the sex or the drug. And that's part of the lie. That's part of the lights being off and thinking even that that's what it's all about. But it's going back to truth of knowing who I really am in Jesus. And these scriptures lay it out. And I'm reminded of that through scripture. I'm reminded of that through meditating on these truths, through prayer, through listening to the Father's voice, and through community of brothers and sisters in Christ who are like, yeah, that is who you are. Because you've been lied to your whole life. Like your whole life is like lie. Like every time you turn on the TV and you see one of those advertisements, it's like lie. You're not good enough. You're not good enough. You're not good enough. And your brothers and sisters in Christ can say, no, like you are in Christ. It's enough. Praise God, it's enough. He's made you a new creation. You are a beautiful, perfect son, daughter. When the Father sees you, it's like the prodigal son, Luke 15. All he can do is sprint. This old man in the story sprinting, which would have been a sort of disgraceful, embarrassing thing to do in the first century for a rich landowner, sprinting after his son or his daughter and embracing you and saying, oh, I mean, you are back. You are my son. You're my daughter. You are, in Colossians 1 language, you are perfect. You are without blemish. You are free from accusation. Truth. So this is where we go. This is the table that we eat at. And whenever the lie comes, whenever that magnet starts pulling you in, take the step back and say, no, Satan, Matthew 4, I don't need to prove that I have value. I don't need to feel it. I don't need to feel that euphoria, that rush, that high. I don't need it because I know that I already have it. It's not a light switch. It's not going to happen overnight, but it's a journey. It's a path. But get on that path. So many Christians, they don't even know that this path exists, this path of being embraced by the Father's love, of being seen as valuable and approved because of Jesus, because of what Jesus did on our behalf, and the freedom that comes from that. I think where a lot of us get hung up is saying, yeah, but this is quicker. It's not about apples to apples. It's not about, it'd be nice, right? Just be like, take this urge away or replace it. Instead of getting high on drugs or porn, there's like some sort of high feeling that, I could have from Jesus instead, and it would be better. That's not the point here. When Jesus was hanging on the cross, there was no high feeling, but he still knew Matthew 3, this is my son whom I love and whom I'm well pleased. Not coincidentally, at the Transfiguration, the Father says the same exact words. This is my son whom I love, whom I'm well pleased, to Jesus. These are the words I think Jesus heard whenever he went in prayer to the Father early in the morning up onto the mountainside. He got into a remote place during the Garden of Gethsemane, during his weakest moment, his most anxiety, his most stress. He didn't look to lust as many of us do, pornography. He didn't look to a drug to help numb the lust. We want to numb the lust, numb the stress, numb the anxiety. He just faced it. He just took it to the Father and said, what's true? What's true is I'm going to die tomorrow. What's true is I don't want to die tomorrow, Father. But what's also true is I am your son whom you love, and nothing can change that. You're well pleased with me. You've already said it. And if you look at the end of Romans 8, so Romans 8, 15 to 17 is about being adopted into co-heirs. And Paul just goes on this, speaking of rants, like this amazing rant about how nothing, much more uplifting rant than Noah's rants. Nothing can separate us from the love of God. And he just lists all these things out about persecution and nakedness and the sword and hardship. These were all the things they were experiencing on a daily basis or a regular basis in the church. None of these things aren't going to change. They're still going to come. Jesus hung on the cross. Your same-sex attraction might still be there. Your spouse might not change, but nothing can separate you from the love of God through Christ. I mean, none of these things. And that's an amazing, amazing sort of love. 2 Corinthians 12, 7 through 10, his grace is still sufficient. As Jesus hung on the cross, we'll talk about a low point, but he was still filled up with the Father's love. From the Garden of Gethsemane, even on the cross, he's saying, Father, Father, forgive them. Why have you forsaken me? He's connecting with the Father even in that very moment, rather than taking the sponge with vinegar on it to numb, some of the pain, whatever this sort of first century concoction of a numbing agent would have been. He's like, it's not about numbing the pain, which is what porn does, which is what lust does, which is what drugs do, which is what sometimes money can do. Facebook. What a pain number that can be. Another Netflix show, another Amazon Prime show, just numb it away. What about sitting in the truth that you're a daughter of the Father? Sitting in the truth that you're a son of the Father whom he loves, and facing that truth through the pain and see what happens. And sitting in the truth even longer and sitting in the truth even longer. That's the Thanksgiving table that we go to. I wish it was easier. I wish it was a product. I wish I could say, no, just do this. Just smoke this. Just do this and you'll feel better. That's not how God's love works. It's not how love works. But there is something so much better and deeper and longer and more satisfying about it. And that's what love does. And so that's the journey. That's the journey that we're on. So I hope this is helpful. I hope it's a helpful tool to you in your journey. And it's something you can come back to and make just a regular part of your walk. So now it's about that time. It's about that time for the most ridiculous transition in podcast history. It's time for Noah's Rant. This is all shenanigans going forward. So if you're not interested in, see you later. We'll see you next time. But for who on earth wouldn't be interested in what's about to come next, sit back and enjoy. I'll try not to make your ears bleed here. Noah's Rant.
Noah's Rant.
Okay, springtime's here. I live in a 100-year-old house. We don't have central air. So in the springtime, we keep the windows open at night. And have, maybe a fan on or something, but keep the windows open. It's nice. Michigan has really great spring. And 5 o'clock in the morning, guess what I hear? That's right. The robin singing, if you want to call it that, really loud and waking me up at 5 o'clock. It's reminding me of when I was in Haiti. There's literally roosters around and the whole cock-a-doodle-doo thing, and when the sun comes up, that's real. That really happens. And these robins at 5 in the morning. Do you know what I want to do to these robins? I want a BB gun. No, I wouldn't ever do that. I don't own a BB gun, so don't worry about it. I keep myself away from temptation. It's like the covenant eyes of robin killing. I just make sure I don't have any BB guns in my house. I was camping with my kids in the backyard. It's a favorite pastime of theirs. It was 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. out in the backyard. There's no fan to block the sound. Here I am awake at 5. Thanks, Robin. Because I had nothing better to do at 5 a.m. It wasn't like I was interested in sleeping at all. Not that sleep is an important part of the human life process so that you don't go crazy and filled with... Literally, it was 4 a.m. one time. That's the record. Waking up at 4 o'clock to the sound of the robin. So here's the thing. I do genuinely want all robins to go extinct. I mean, we'd be fine without them. There's plenty of other birds. There's sparrows, cardinals, whatever. I mean, there's not even any like sports teams named after robins. It's just you got Batman and Robin. Yeah, I mean, he could carry on the name. That's fine. He doesn't have to go anywhere. He doesn't sing like this. But what? By the way, what an awful like. You're a superhero. Yes, I made it. I'm a superhero. We got these cool, like Iron Man, Incredible Hulk, Batman. What's your name? I'm Robin. Yeah, because Butterfly Man was taken, so they gave me Robin. Robins. I do want them extinct. Yeah, but that's probably not going to happen, but I do know, I mean, I do pray for that. I have no idea what that was. That was awesome. Oh my. I do pray for that. Pray for that. I do pray for that, but I don't think God's going to answer that prayer. I don't, even if I have a lot of faith, I don't think he's going to answer that prayer. Back to the prosperity gospel message. But I do know robins listen to the podcast, and they specifically listen to Noah's Rant. They did a survey of robins, and Noah's Rant is very popular. It's like top 3 amongst robins. So listen, robins, just stop. Just like let me sleep. You can start singing at like 7 or 8 a.m. That's fine. But I don't need you singing at 5 o'clock. It's not even singing. It's like this whistling. Stop it, because I want to be able to sleep. So leave me alone, and I'll leave you alone. We can be friends. But you need to stop. It's gone on long enough. So this is it. I know they're listening. I know we just solved the problem. That's it. So there's no more robins singing at 4 or 5 in the morning. The world is a better place. You're welcome. If you have dealt with the urban rooster as I have, you won't have to worry about it anymore, because Noah's Rant has taken care of business as it always does, never fails. That is the end of episode 12/74 of the Flipside podcast. Thank you for listening. If you like this episode, would you share it? Would you leave a review? Would you fill that hole in my soul for validation? Oops. I mean, I'm not supposed to say that. Okay, we better just end. Yeah, we better just end. End it here now. Thanks for listening, though. I truly do appreciate it. I will, what I say? Until next time, I will see you on the flip side.
The Flip Side with Noah Filipiak is a South Francis Press production. Copyright Noah Filipiak. www.noahfilipiak.com. Theme music by Kyle Lake at K Lake Music. Used with permission. Please subscribe and leave a review on iTunes or wherever podcasts are found.
Souls needing revivals, what I do? Influence like the cup full of that Bombay. Kelly's to them Tom Hanks, Lexus to them Andres. Hoping they jacket my inner reverence, stressing for leverage. That they see the king's tracks on the pavement leading to heaven. Yow, dripping in that gold that don't perish. People selling fake, see the green around their belly. Taking refuge in his hand, see his palms, my living quarters. Close them when I'm finished, then it's time to bring me closer. There's no purgatory, cause you're in or you're out. When you see him in the clouds, then you know it's going down. Raise them. They've been sleeping for some ages. Now all God's babies so confused by this hatred. Pulpit preachers shouldn't aim to be A-list. Money probably long, but short is with your days. Have you ever heard the sound of freedom? Have you ever heard the sound of freedom? Have you ever heard the sound of freedom? cross is nothing pretty. So why the beauty pageants and caught up in emotions and following your passions? Talking that freedom, our people need them more than that Easter or coffee shop discussions debating over baristas. Please, sir, this is why we inked up. Even when they do the autopsy, they still see him. Freedom, freedom, freedom coming quickly. Bars from the spirit, put it through the preamp and mix it like a chemist. Put it in the airwaves and hoping that they hear it. If there's some confusion, then I hope you see him clearly. Raise them, raise them, raise them. They've been sleeping for some ages. Now all God's babies so confused by this hatred. Pulpit preachers shouldn't aim to be A-list. Money probably long, but sure it's what your days is.